This meeting is called to order in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. This meeting was noticed in a list of meeting dates sent to the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, and the Highland Park Planet on January 3rd, 2019, and was posted on the bulletin board of Borough Hall, 221 South Fifth Avenue on January 3rd, 2019, and has remained continuously posted as required by law. Fire exits are to my left and to my right. If you come up to speak, please speak into the microphones, and assistive listening devices are available.
It was there. I don't know what happened to it. Anybody see the microphone's been up? I'm like, where did it go? Mayday. We go.
Okay. Gary, since you're up, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
You got a mic.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Brill Mittler,
Here.
Councilman Fine,
Here.
Councilwoman Foster Dublin,
Here.
Councilman George,
Here.
Councilman Hale,
Here.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan,
Here.
Councilwoman Welkowitz,
Here.
Borough Attorney,
Here.
Borough Administrator.
Here.
All right, we're going to start with the council reports, and today I'm going to start on my left with Councilwoman Foster Dublin.
I have no report.
Okay. Councilman Fine.
I do not have a report either, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Kim Chohan.
I do have a report, Mayor. For the senior services, we're still offering tax preparation every Wednesday, 9:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the community center through Wednesday, April 10th. Please stop by or call the center for details and guidelines, and you must make an appointment in advance. Our March luncheon will take place on Monday, March 18th. Music entertainment provided by John Gallagher. Stop by before the luncheon for the next What's New and What's News with the mayor. And our next Council on Aging meeting will be held on Tuesday, March 19th at 2:30 p.m. at the community center. And please just stay up to date on our Facebook page and also check the Borough website for our upcoming spring programs and events. In regards to recreation, the summer camp packets are already available, and the summer camp will run July 8th through August 16th. And new this year, we will begin before care at 7 a.m. The summer camp jobs are posted on our Borough website. Please check that out online, or you can stop by the community center for an application. In regards to the Arts Commission, we completed the Windows of Understanding, which ended in February, with 15 artists and business owners. We also held 3 tables of understanding at Blue Horse, Ruthie's, and Sushiana, which was well attended. I'm sure the mayor will talk more about this as well. And the Arts Commission won the Park Partners grant for the mural project. Thank you for those that supported them. The mural will potentially go, it will be going where Robert's Floral is. So be on the lookout for that. Our Band-Aid bench, the tiling and decorating. I know the artists will be upset that I said decorating, but will start to take place in April as long as the weather holds up. And for hold on, sorry, I have some notes here. And On Friday, I had a chance to participate in Read Across America at Borough School with our second graders. I don't actually remember the teacher's name, but if you had a second grader there, they drilled me about that splash park, and they made me promise. So I told them next year, hopefully I'll have an update for them. And that is my report, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Hale, do you have a report?
I do not, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Welkowitz, do you have a report?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I was also at Read Across America, and I'd like to thank Principal Benjamin of Bartle School and the new librarian, Mr. Hanks. It was a well-organized event. They had readers all day long. Stephanie and I were on at about 10. I also had a second grade class. I know the mayor followed a little bit later, and there were other special guests. So it was a really nice event, and the kids loved it. They got to dress in all different costumes all throughout the week. So it's always wonderful to celebrate Dr. Seuss's birthday. Last week, I had the pleasure of attending the New Jersey Bicycle and Pedestrian Summit down at Mercer Community College. It was their 10th annual event and the largest to date. Commissioner of New Jersey Department of Transportation, Diane Gutierrez-Gachati, who opened the summit, spoke on the need to focus on mobility versus transportation. And to clarify this, mobility is access for people of all ages, 9 through 90, people of all incomes, people of all different physical abilities and methods of transportation, whether that be car, bus, train, pedestrian, wheelchair, bicycles, etc. This means shared roadways, paths, and infrastructure. Professor Leanne Von Hagen was also there. She's from Blaustein School of Public Policy and Planning, and she gave a session on implemented new Complete Streets resolutions for recognition by Sustainable New Jersey. Highland Park, our Safe Walking and Cycling Committee, plans to review and implement these new standards, and we'll keep you posted throughout the year as we address them. The summit organizer, Cindy Steiner, was there. She discussed the need for new municipal laws now that state laws have legalized low-speed electronic vehicles which travel under 20 miles per hour. Yes, our state assembly just approved that last week. So we'll be looking into this, our Safe Walking and Cycling Committee team, along with public safety and code enforcement, and we'll be weighing in and creating our own ordinance governing e-vehicles for Highland Park and where they have access and where we will allow them to go. Highland Park has positioned itself to meet these goals as we continue to work on a new bicycle and pedestrian plan to incorporate it into our master plan review later this year. Earlier today, I was joined by our Borough Administrator Terry Hover and her assistant Emma Missy, members of our Safe Walking and Cycling Committee, and our Main Street at a Blaustein class to develop a placemaking projects for March 26th. I've been talking about this now for several weeks. Today we had another working session at Blaustein. The graduate students, under again Professor Leanne Von Hagen and Laura Torchio from Project for Public Spaces, look to reactivating some of the living rooms on the avenue and enhance more sociability. Specifically, the intersections we'll be looking at are Raritan and 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Avenue, where existing living rooms are now. The students are planning several overlapping projects and events that will last for about a 2-week period. So look out for that, and we'll be posting some more information about all those events. We've also begun advertising our 5K and street fair, so please save the date for Sunday, May 5. It's a big day in town. It starts super early. Runners may register now at mainstreethp.org. Our course is not only fun. Many children and families run, walk, or roll the course. The course is also USATF certified and draws many competitive runners as well. We're also seeking sponsors at all different levels. Please take a look at the website to see if you could contribute, perhaps with your business or your social group. And actually, I think that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Council President George, do you have a report?
I do, Mayor. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to wish everybody a happy Fat Tuesday. It is the last Tuesday before the season, in the Christian season of Lent begins, but in New Orleans, it is a time for community development. I've been to several of them, and the family has been to several of them, and it's happens to be one of the premier jazz events that happens anywhere. In Public Works, the snow plowing this year has been a very odd sort of a winter. But one of the things that we observed was that the small RTV machine, which is the small plow, it's like basically a large ATV with a snow plow on it, has proved its worth in a lot of tight corners. DPW is working, as a matter of fact, today with our public information officer and STAC to prepare further materials regarding the emerald ash borer removal program for borough trees. They're going to mark the trees to be removed and provide more information on the removal. Actually, I believe the proposal is to actually place a small and biodegradable tag describing the problem and why the tree is being removed, so that, as well as opening up more avenues for residents to learn about the problem in case they have ash trees on their own properties. The Environmental Commission, as Councilwoman Welkowitz mentioned about the electric vehicles, Environmental Commission will be reviewing draft vehicle ordinances, which I've been discussing with Emma Missy, also with the Environmental Commission, has had that idea on their radar for several years. So we're talking about just what it should look like, what it should cover, and how an EV ordinance should work. We have grant applications in for placing municipal EVs, charging stations, and we'll be looking at such requirements as parking and also recommendations perhaps to incorporate it into redevelopment plans. With regard to Sustainable Highland Park, they won a Park Partners grant to sponsor posters for Earth Day, which they sponsor every year at the end of April. It's for local artists and others who submit themed work around people power and we the people, and the project is to have posters that show not overarching national environmental problems, but something you can do on a local level, on a day-to-day level, on an individual level, to help contribute to the environmental quality of our town. I'd like to thank volunteer and SHP member Irene Riegner for her help in designing the project and manning the booth and coordinating the submissions. Finally, with regard to the Shade Tree Advisory Commission, they had a submission for a purchase of 50 dogwoods, as well as a recommendation for our annual purchase of trees to be planted in town and also available to residents at Earth Day. And we were lucky enough to get 50 dogwoods committed to Highland Park as a native species. They're extremely difficult to get a hold of.
That's great.
So, and the list is very competitive. We've been shut out for the last 2 or 3 years on a lot of the native species, but they actually obtained it this year. Dr. Melanie, I thank Karen Swain, the chairperson, for putting in a lot of work on that grant. Dr. Melanie McDermott, also on the committee, completed and submitted the STAC's annual activity report for 2018 to the state. And I'd have to say that STAC has been multiple times more active than in the past in a lot of the projects they've been doing and the engagement they have on a weekly basis. I'd also note that several volunteer groups are already lined up for work at the Native Plant Sanctuary. We have weekend work going on through April and May, as a matter of fact, to help us clean it up. That's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Borough Administrator, do you have a report?
Not a report, but I'd just like to announce a meeting date, because this is our only council meeting between now and the next meeting date with this event. We are going to hold a follow-up meeting regarding the development proposal for Cleveland Avenue. It's basically going to be a report out from what we heard from the last open meeting with some synthesis from our borough planner. And so I'd encourage anybody who is interested
to come to that meeting. I think it'll be very interesting. We're going to have it on Monday, March 18th, 7 p.m. in council chambers, so we can use the larger screen to do some slides. It's not a formal council meeting, we're just using the space. So I wanted to make sure people got that on their radar. We will also be using all the usual outlets to get the word out, as well as for those people who attended the meeting, we'll shoot an email. If we collected your contact information, we'll send you the information that way as well. So just be advised, March 18th, 7 p.m. regarding the development on Cleveland Avenue.
Okay, thank you. Borough Attorney, do you have a report?
No report, Madam Mayor.
Okay, I do have a report. I wanted to give everyone an update on the acting police chief and acting police captain promotions, as well as the hiring of the mentor for the acting chief. This process is the most intense promotion process in which the police department here in Highland Park has ever been involved. It includes, it consists the oral questions provided by the State Association of Police Chiefs, which has been completed, a series of essay questions provided by the Chiefs Association with input from me and the Public Safety Committee, which has been completed, and in-depth interviews held by myself and members of the Public Safety Committee, including questions provided by residents at the Equity Commission's open public meeting. An initial list of over 100 questions were provided that night, so I want to thank everyone for that. And those questions will be culled down by the Equity Commission to 10. While this process is going on, I, the Public Safety Committee members, and the chair of the new Equity Commission will be involved in interviewing consultants for the mentor position. Upon selection of the new acting chief and acting captain, we will hold an open public meeting to introduce the new management of our police department, plus the mentor to the public. The public will be invited to ask any questions they may have and or communicate directly with the new chief about issues that they feel must be addressed. It is my intention to continue these open public meetings with our police team on a regular basis. I just want to say a few things. We live in very trying times, not the least of which is policing throughout this nation, and the hope that at least here in our backyards, we can have a say. And I want you to understand that we have heard your say and continue to hear you. I am doing my best to incorporate your voice in this process within a legal framework. I want you to know that I do believe that the generation of officers that are coming up for these promotions are not encumbered by the ways of the past. And I do believe that we will be able to promote an acting chief and acting captain, but we will guide them and monitor their progress with the help of our consultant mentor. And that's my report. I'm going to open up now for the first 15 minutes of public comment, and I'm going to ask the borough administrator to monitor the time and signal when we're starting to run.
I have to use that microphone, unfortunately, on the end there,
You have to
sorry.
use this one.
I just want to confirm how much time we're given.
3 minutes.
3 minutes a person.
Up
Okay.
to 15 minutes for this session.
Okay.
It's,
There's no, this is it?
That's
it.
working. Unfortunately, the handheld, so I apologize for having to come
Okay.
again.
My name is Jessica Hensden, and I live on Montgomery Street. I was not able to attend the last council meeting, but watched. Yeah.
Can you unplug it out?
Is it just take? Sorry, we're going to try to resolve the microphone. The height differential makes that.
Somebody's chair. We hear creaking.
No, it's not a chair. Good. Just don't want to go over the edge. Move down this way. That's why I got elected.
Yes. Yes?
Better.
Yes.
Nice.
Okay.
Thank you, Jessica.
My name is Jessica Hinston, and I live on Montgomery Street. I was not able, as I said, was not able to attend the last council meeting, but did watch the video. And I just wanted to address some of the statements that were made on the 19th, which was the last council meeting. Several council members made a point of congratulating the governing body, essentially congratulating yourselves on a hiring process that involved the community. And I just want to let you know that I think that is disingenuous. At one point in the last meeting, Council President Phil George shared with those in attendance that the hiring process started at least 6 months ago. So this makes me wonder why, when the mayor and council members, Elsie Foster Dublin and Matthew Hale, began meeting with 5 members from the Bias Free group in September 2018, they chose to never inform these members that a hiring process was underway or seek their input. So while the forum on February 6th was a good and productive step, it was actually a result of intense pressure by community members at the council meeting in December upon hearing that the hiring process was underway, and then persistence from the newly formed Highland Park Equity Commission, which I should note includes 5 founding members of Bias Free HP. But it was too little and too late. For example, in the forum, I raised the question as to why the mayor and council had not considered a police director, which would have allowed for someone to be hired from outside of the police department as an alternative to hiring a police chief. I think everyone remembers what Labor attorney Thibault answered, that by hiring a police director, you would lose a gun on the street. That was exactly what he said. So when I finish my statement, I'm interested in knowing what the mayor and council, whether they agree with this response given by the Labor attorney, and specifically the reason of that we just would lose a gun on the street, and why has a police director not been considered? If you had involved the community and truly listened and given us a voice at the table from day one of this process, you would have learned that many of us would have directed you to explore other options of governance at the police department, such as hiring a police director, as that would have allowed for us to disrupt a system and workplace culture in the Highland Park Police Department that is problematic and hire from outside. But you didn't. And now you're moving forward with the hiring of a police chief from within a department that has a troubling past of racial profiling and biased actions towards members of our community. And to add to that, you have now chosen to cut out members of the Equity Commission who have gained our trust as true advocates for equity. You claim that there is a legal basis for cutting this out, but with just a little bit of research, a member of our group was able to locate examples of municipalities involving the public in the interview process. I don't have time to go into that now, but I'm sure someone else will talk about it. It is really disappointing that you continue to act in ways that further erode our trust in your ability to make decisions that both honor the concerns of the community and work to build trust with the Highland Park Department. I hope you will change course, and immediately.
Terry, I'm just going to ask you to let us know how much time is left in this session as each person comes up.
15 minutes, right?
Yes. Okay. Please state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Marcia Goldberg. My address is 451 South 5th Avenue in Highland Park. I'm here on another subject. I'm here to talk about Buck Woods. I'm going to give a very brief summary, and then I have several questions, a few questions at least, that I would like to ask. Some people here may not be familiar with the issue of Buck Woods. Last May, the borough issued a tree removal permit to the developer who owns the site to take out an additional 179 mature trees, and many of those were on steep slopes. I'm going to skip over the summary. If anybody would like to ask me some questions about this, you can approach me. I'd like to talk about the court date that we and the developer and the borough had last Friday. That was attended by the borough's attorney. I have a few questions about that. The this was a court date because the developer filed a motion for summary judgment to reinstate his tree removal permit that we were successful in getting a stay on. And on Friday, the judge who heard that, despite our arguments for the preservation of the trees until a development plan is approved, and despite the support of the borough's attorney for our position, the judge ruled in favor of the developer but extended the stay for 2 weeks, pending borough's introduction of zoning ordinance. So that 2 weeks will be on March 15th. We have another court date, and I have a few questions for the borough's attorney. What exactly is the judge looking for from the borough regarding zoning? What has the borough done since Friday towards that end? And will the borough be able to produce what the judge is looking for in time for the March 15th deadline? And I would also like to know how the site is currently zoned.
Okay.
So those are questions about zoning. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ed.
Well, your summary is correct. We were in court on Friday, and the judge did extend the stay on the removal of the trees, basically on a 2-week cycle. He instructed us to have the zoning ordinance, the overlay zoning ordinance for Buck Woods, prepared and adopted by the council by May 30th. So that's May 30th is the outside date for us to have the new overlay zoning for Buck Woods considered and adopted by the council. He instructed us to work with the owner of the property to see if we could develop a zoning overlay ordinance that worked for them and worked for the borough. And as a result of that, there's a meeting this Thursday with the developer, with the developer's development team, with our planner. We've invited the developer's LSRP to join us at that meeting as we move forward to try to work out a rezoning or an overlay zone for the property, which would allow for the multifamily development called for in our settlement in the Mount Laurel case, 75 units. And the judge has indicated that as long as we're making reasonable progress to either agree with the developer about what the zoning should look like or abandon that effort and just simply adopt the ordinance, which we believe is appropriate, that he would extend on a 2-week cycle the stay. We expect the stay, therefore, to be extended until May 30th, and we'll have a final compliance hearing on our Mount Laurel case on June 14th. So that's the current schedule. We do go back to court on the 15th.
Thank you. Okay, timing, Borough Administrator?
Oh, you got 10 more minutes.
Okay.
Hi, Jeff Vardaro. I live on Wayne Street. The last meeting. It's working. My voice isn't working, I guess. Sorry, Jeff Vardaro. I live on Wayne Street. The last meeting, I had asked the borough attorney a question about whether the police chief interviews could be transcribed and redacted to remove sensitive information and then shared with the public or the Equity Commission. And I think Councilman George had recommended that maybe you do some research before answering. I'm wondering whether there's been an answer to that question.
The answer is yes. We've looked into the question. The problem with allowing that to occur, and also by allowing individuals from individual residents or members of the Equity Committee to participate in the interviews, would be to change the protocol which the town adopted back in the middle of November to set forth how they were going to go about doing the promotions. There's a written protocol that is very clear about the steps that have to be followed. And the mayor has outlined that protocol, and we're at the last step, which is the interview process. And in our opinion, it would be inappropriate to change that process by introducing a stenographer and having a transcript prepared as a part of the back and forth of the interview. And it would be also inappropriate to introduce participants from the public in that interview process. That was not announced at the beginning. The police officers that submitted their interest in being promoted, there were 4, relied upon what the protocol was, and on December 1st, they submitted their applications in accordance with that protocol. So in our opinion, it's not appropriate for us to change that way of going about the promotion process. So I had opined to the mayor and the council that We should not have an interview with public participation, and we should not also have a transcript made of the interview.
Can I ask just a quick follow-up? Did the protocol say that there wouldn't be a transcript made, or it just was silent on that issue?
It's silent on that, making a transcript. And
did the protocol make a reference to Councilman Hale sharing information from the interviews with the Equity Commission? Because the Equity Commission, as I understand it, didn't even exist at that point, right?
Well, the council, this obviously is a decision to be made by the governing body. And Councilman Hale's a member of the governing body. So if there's information to be shared following the interviews or sharing the questions ahead of time, that is something that the governing body can do. But I think the line gets drawn about changing the process by inviting individual members, not members of the governing body, into this personnel process, and I don't believe that's appropriate.
Okay, and I guess just the only question, because I'm trying to separate out in my own mind which decisions are legal decisions that you're assisting the council with, and which are the sort of political decisions that the council needs to make. There's nothing, as far as I'm hearing from you, that would be illegal about making this kind of change to the process. It's just, you don't think it would be a good idea?
There's a statute, right, a law, and it's pretty short, that simply delegates the responsibility for police promotions from within to the governing body of the municipality. That's step one. Step two is then you are to develop a protocol or a process to do it. So everybody knows going in what the process is, so it's done fairly. So I've taken the position that once you establish that protocol, and now we're several months and almost to the end of that protocol, it would be inappropriate legally to change the ground rules. And that's been my opinion to the mayor and council.
Okay, thank you.
Time?
6 minutes.
Mayor. Hi, my name is Larry Cohen. I live in Fanwood, New Jersey, but I'm here on behalf of the Humane Society of the United States as a volunteer legislative coordinator, and I'm in furtherance of a correspondence I had with Councilman George, who was kind enough to write back to me when I addressed the entire council about proposing an ordinance to prohibit the retail sale of dogs and cats in the borough. And knowing full well that you don't have a store at this time that does that. That's part of the idea here. This is something that is really a nationwide movement. Over 300 towns and cities across the country have done this. New Jersey leads the way with 127 municipalities having passed this. 2 states, California and Maryland, have passed this. And a nation, Great Britain, has prohibited this as well. It all stems from something that people with common sense have known for years, but was proven not too long ago when state and national law combined to allow watchdog groups to research exactly where New Jersey pet stores were obtaining their dogs from. And as people knew, we were able to prove, and can still prove, that they were getting their dogs. Cats are not really sold commercially in New Jersey. They were getting their dogs from these big commercial breeders, AKA puppy mills, out in the Midwest. Now, unfortunately, in 2017, early 2017, the new administration took away that oversight ability for groups like myself. It shut down the website, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which is tasked with overseeing this. It shut down that part of the website, which allowed us to research the inspection reports of these breeders. And we knew these breeders were selling to the stores because the stores, by state law, are required to tell their towns what breeders they're using. So we could match that up until early 2017. Now, since then, the stores have taken the tact of, well, nobody can find out anymore, but trust us. We're doing the right thing. We've cleaned up our act. We're only sourcing from the best breeders. In fact, they have to be good breeders because they're licensed by the USDA, which is like saying that because you or I have a driver's license, we are impeccable drivers. We will never be arrested. We will never get points. Nothing will ever happen to us. In fact, the opposite is true. I could make you cringe with some of these examples of inspection reports that I have in my possession, and I'd be happy to share them with you, but I don't want to take too much time. The point is, the new method that towns and cities across the country are taking is to set up a firewall, to try and curb demand for these poor innocent animals from these puppy mills by decreasing or diminish supply by decreasing demand, by setting up these ordinances that say, not here. They're not anti-business. They allow pet stores, the vast majority of which don't sell dogs and cats, but they just say, our citizens, their morals and values don't want this model.
So this is the session when we have only 3 minutes per person.
I'm sorry.
So that's okay. So two things. One is this sounds to me like an economic development project regarding stores. So I'm going to ask Councilwoman Welkowitz to work with you further on this to determine how we can move forward with something like this and if we should. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You can feel free to come up to the second session if you have more to say.
That's okay.
Mr. Cohen? We only have 2 minutes left.
Okay, I'll do it very quickly. I'm Susan Gutwell, 224 Valentine Street in Highland Park. I just want to say something about the word inappropriate. It seems to me that if something is legally inappropriate, that it also may be morally inappropriate not to have included the public in that early decision about what the protocol was going to be. And I'd like to say that that's why bias-free Highland Park is here today. And every time, because what is considered what's legally appropriate may not be morally appropriate, especially in a town that has so failed in terms of its policing in terms of people of color.
Thank you. Hang on, Mr. Gross. How much time? Mr. Gross, there's only 1 minute left in this session, so you can feel free to talk for a minute and then come back up later or save it for later.
I'll wait till later.
Okay, thank you. Okay. May I have a motion to adopt or reject the resolution to approve emergency temporary appropriations?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilman Fine?
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster Dublin? Yes. Councilman George?
Yes.
Councilman Hale?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Welkowitz?
Yes.
Okay, may I have a motion to remove items number 23 and number 25 from the consent agenda?
Also moved. Second.
That was asked earlier.
Oh. You mean separate?
Separated out.
Yeah.
To separate 23 and 25. One
Right.
second.
All in favor?
Mm-hmm.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, may I have a motion to adopt items number 10 through 22, item 24, and item 26?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Fine?
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster Dublin?
Yes.
Councilman George?
Yes.
Councilman Hale?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Welkowitz?
Yes.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve or reject item number 25, the resolution for redeemed liens?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Fine?
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster Dublin?
Yes.
Councilman George?
Yes.
Councilman Hale?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Welkowitz?
Abstain.
Tabling.
Okay. Okay. Clerk, can you please report on the election of volunteer firefighters?
Received notification from the Highland Park Volunteer Fire Department of the election of Sani Patel as a Highland Park volunteer firefighter.
Okay, may I have a motion to confirm?
Motion to confirm.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Fine?
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster Dublin?
Yes.
Councilman George?
Yes.
Councilman Hale?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Welkowitz?
Yes.
All right, we're about to open our second public discussion. If you have something you would like to say, please step up to the microphone, give us your name and address.
No.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Herb Gross, and I live at Adelaide Gardens. Tonight, I am pleased to announce that the Congress of the United States of America has just recently inducted and sworn in 15 veterans to the United States Congress. These are all men and women on both sides of the aisle that are representing America and representing you. Everyone in this room, everyone that's watching television. You can be very proud of these veterans. I know most of these veterans. I had met them over the years at their post. America can be very, very proud, and I was just informed of this, and I will have their pictures and a complete resume at the next meeting. Again, I wish to say that everyone in this room can be very proud of these veterans that have fought for you, the entire United States of America, and are now representing the Congress of the United States on both sides of the aisle. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Marion Sakowitz, 617 South Fifth Avenue. So I just want to follow up on what Marcia found out.
Marion,
Okay.
can you hold the mic closer to you?
Okay,
Thank
can you hear me now? Okay. Okay, so my question is, how is the community going to be informed on decisions that are being made with respect to Buck Woods? I'm concerned that a lot of decisions are being made in court by people who don't necessarily understand the situation. Decisions are being made without input from the community, without oversight by the borough professionals, without oversight by appropriate commissions like the Planning Board and the Environmental Commission. So my question is, how are we going to be assured that whatever comes through with this process is going to be done in a responsible manner?
Well, I think I can answer that. We have started, for example, with the lawsuit that was argued on Friday, where the borough did support the neighbors in terms of trying to keep the stay in place and keep the suit alive. And we've shared the paperwork that we've filed in that respect. Unfortunately, it didn't carry the day, but we were arguing against ourselves, but we were arguing for you to keep the stay in place. If we go forward with our discussions with the technical staff about trying to come up with the overlay zone, we will come up with an overlay zone, either with them or without them. Our next step under the court process would be the judge has given us an opportunity to have an informal community meeting in the community center right behind us to share with you the outline of what the proposed ordinance would intend to do. So it wouldn't be a public hearing, it wouldn't be an introduction, it would be an opportunity for us to put up some illustration boards with our planner and to explain how the new overlay ordinance would work. And you would be invited to attend that. All the residents will. After that, the process would involve a public introduction of the ordinance. In other words, we'd have a piece of paper here with all the standards, and that would be introduced, and that would be then referred to the planning board. And the planning board would have a public hearing on it as well to invite you in to comment on the ordinance. And then they would send that ordinance back to the governing body for a second reading, and the second reading is a public hearing, just like this tonight. And you would be given every opportunity to comment yea or nay about what you see in the ordinance, and then the governing body would take action. And that would occur before May 30th.
Okay, so nothing will happen on to the trees before May 30th?
Well, right now, I can only say that nothing will happen to the trees until March 15th, because that's when we go back to court. But the judge indicated on the record that if we're moving forward with the overlay zoning, which we control, and we've been told by the mayor and council to move forward, that we can extend that and request that he extend that stay probably every 2 weeks until we get to May.
Okay, but JSM has sort of authority. If JSM says they're not happy with what you're doing, does the tree, at that point, do they get their tree permit back?
Well, they have their tree permit now. They never lost it. There was just a prohibition to do anything with it. We would go to court if we got to that point, and we would explain to the judge that we were unable to work out an agreement over what the ordinance should do, that our professional planners have drafted an ordinance which we would like to share with the public, and we believe it's an appropriate way to develop the 75 units. I'm confident the judge would say fine, as long as you have the ordinance and you have some professionals behind it. And then we would ask them to continue the stay until we complete the ordinance process. And from the arguments that took 3 hours on Friday, I'm quite confident that the judge would be amenable to that.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Francesca Maresca. I reside at 216 South 3rd Avenue, and I have a question as to the police chief hiring process in relationship to a timeline of events that has happened. My involvement in talking about this issue started last spring, so I believe we've had a relatively vocal presence and voice in our feelings about bias policing in town, etc. On October 2nd, an agreement was reached with DeLacy Consulting to look at data on police stops. That report was due on Friday, March 1st. Mm-hmm. So given the fact that we have been a vocal presence here since last spring, the fact that this report was, the contract signed October 2nd, yet a protocol was written in November. And there was no effort to involve any of the people, including bias-free HP, people who have been involved or been the victims or survivors of racial profiling in town, to have a voice in that protocol itself. So you have moved forward. You keep telling us you're hearing our voices and that you're including them within a legal framework, but you're not. The other issue is officers are not encumbered by ways of the past. However, if I remember correctly, in order to even apply for the police chief position, you needed to attain the rank of sergeant, hold that position for a minimum of 1 year. Mm-hmm. So I would assume that everybody applying for this position has been a member of our police force for more than 1 year, and that they are in fact encumbered by the ways of the past, unless you have figured out a way to assess the fact that they are not. And unless somebody's going to tell me otherwise, I do not believe that has happened.
So I want to address the question you raised about DeLacy Davis's report. I had the opportunity to talk with Mr. Davis last week when I asked him what the status was. He was ill for a few weeks, and the computer systems in our situation were programs were different from the data that they were used to working with. I believe that they've worked out all the syncing problems between our data and theirs. I'm waiting for him to get back to me with more of an update on when I can expect that.
So we don't know what that report says, but we're moving forward.
Well, we don't know what the report says because the report doesn't exist yet. Okay.
But yet we're moving forward with our police chief hiring.
Okay.
Hi, Dan Stern, Cardinal, Harper Street. I just want to comment that the two main issues we're talking about here, police leadership and also Buck Woods, are both issues of equity. We're not talking about two different things. We're talking about the same fundamental issue here. The fact of the matter is that Highland Park is highly segregated. If you look at a map of who lives where in Highland Park, you could draw a line at 6th Avenue straight down the south side that divides the south side in half, okay? And so we can we can do everything in our power to make sure, the people here could decide how the police department is going to run. One of the members of the Equity Commission could be the police director or something. But without addressing the underlying housing segregation, you're never going to get all the way there. Housing segregation from day one has been the foundation upon which police bias is built. That's how this idealized, beat cop walking the beat in like Boston or something knows who belongs in the neighborhood and who doesn't. So we need to do the work to make sure that the process for the police leadership is done in an appropriate way so that we have confidence that the attitude from the top is going to be taking all the measures that have been recommended to reduce and eliminate bias in the police force. But it's contradictory to do that work and also promote housing developments that exacerbate housing segregation rather than reduce it. So my hope is that when the relevant governing bodies are looking at zoning changes related to Buckwoods, that we're able to adopt inclusive zoning policies that are going to increase the housing supply and reduce segregation rather than exclusionary zoning that's going to keep the housing supply restricted and increase the already severe housing segregation in Highland Park.
It's a very good point, Dan.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dan Beatty, and I live at 304 Montgomery Street. I was wondering, a prior speaker spoke of the report from DeLacy Davis, and I was wondering if there was a plan of how to share that report with the community.
As soon as the report is available, we could have it presented at an open public meeting if that is something that you think might be a good way to go. Yeah, it's very frustrating for all of us, that whole process. Councilwoman Foster Dublin, did you want to add any comments to that?
I definitely agree that it should be shared in a public setting. I spoke with DeLacy this morning to get an update on the report, and he had some issues, but he's working through it, and I'm hoping within the next couple of weeks, or at least by the end of the month, or say 2-3 weeks, that we'll have a report that he will present to us and that he will be able to present to the public as well, because we really want to see transparency in whatever the report says.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. I know a couple other speakers have raised issues about the culture of the police department, given prior issues of racial profiling and disparities in around issues of race. I also want to ask if the council is aware of any complaints over the last 5 years against the police department.
Complaints?
You mean any lawsuits involving the police department?
Yeah.
Sure. I can't tell you how many, but there have been lawsuits that involve the police department, yes.
And have these been reviewed by the council in this process for looking for a new police chief?
Well, they don't necessarily, and they might involve other officers. It might involve accidents that took place and so on. I don't think those lawsuits have any direct relevance certainly on the promotion process, but we could certainly make them available through the Joint Insurance Fund handles those. We have insurance. They go to them, and insurance attorneys take care of those things. We get reports periodically.
Okay. I was just wondering if any of those complaints spoke to some of the issues of the culture of the police department or racial disparities or racial profiling, and I thought those might be important things for the council to know in the interview process.
There's a couple of wrongful death cases because of the accidents. That's it. It's the only ones I know.
Yeah, Ed, are you
well, we could. It's a good suggestion. We could certainly look at those. The Joint Insurance Fund can give us a list of those and the complaints. To my knowledge, the answer to both of those questions is no. It usually involves a dispute over, I don't know, what the PBA contract provides, or a police officer investigating an accident that they believe that the police officer did something wrong, so there's a civil lawsuit. They're all civil matters. So, but I could check those, and if there's any relevance, pass them along to the mayor and council.
I just wanted to raise that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anna Pereira. I live at 344 Becker Street, and I want to thank the members of the public, everybody who spoke for their very insightful and very effective and dignified comments, especially the gentleman who raised a very important issue about residential segregation, which I think is the piece that was missing for us to understand where we come from and what we need to do and what we need to do right. I want to applaud the work of the Equity Commission. I was at the forum that produced the 100 questions. I was incredibly moved and impressed by this effort of shared governance. I've never seen anything like that in my short life as an active citizen of a town. And I just want to urge you not to shatter this trust that has been deposited in you as government, because we're very close to that. So please don't shatter this trust by cutting them off the process as they have asked you not to do. So just be mindful of this incredible effort that has been conducted for almost a year now. Everybody's tired, but I think people feel things need to be said now that we never had a chance to say, and we hope things will be done. So I hope you will take this plea. It's important to me. I want to add, if I may I add one word? At the last, it's a question too. At the last council meeting, a senior from the high school spoke in public comments about an issue that has troubled the community and special students at the schools and parents of students at the school for a really long time, which is the presence of an officer with a weapon in the school. This is an issue that parents and students feel very strongly about. For the first time, we've raised this at Board of Education meetings. We've raised it here. So for the first time, last time, there was some progress, I think. And first I want to thank Councilwoman Velkovich, who kind of said, maybe we can look into that or something in that. And somebody else also picked it up. It wasn't a well-attended meeting, so I want to just remind everybody that that was said and that you promised, you said you would look into that. I'm just asking, are we going to look into that, and when? What's the plan? And again, thanks to the person who raised it, who's in the room.
She's right behind you.
I stole your
Well, I would love to know if there's been any progress on that or what the ongoing plan for that is from you.
Oh, you need to state your name and address.
Sorry, I'm Sophia McDermott Hughes. I live at 330 South 3rd.
So, in all honesty, we have not addressed that issue yet. We've been working very hard on how we're moving forward with the police and other stuff outside of the police area. So, yes, it's on our radar. It has not yet been addressed.
And then I had wanted to address the borough attorney's comments from earlier. I think saying that something is inappropriate isn't enough of an excuse not to do the right thing, and I would think that anyone who looking to become the police chief or the police captain going forward, knowing the kind of problems that we have in this community and knowing the community's drive to reform the police department and to have more transparency, would welcome the opportunity to have more community involvement in their process and welcome the opportunity to be more open to the community and have the community support them from the get-go of their hiring instead of participating in a process that is very closed off and is clearly raising tensions and clearly making the community even less inclined towards the current state of the police. So I think at the very least, I think we would appreciate it if you would at least bring up the idea of having a redacted transcript to these candidates and judge their response, because I think in terms of what kind of police chief or captain we're looking forward, we would look forward to having in this town would be someone who would want that.
Okay, thank you.
Monique, 407 Lincoln Avenue, and I think my comment sort of draws on the comments that were made earlier, and I wasn't here for the first segment, so I'm not sure if this was already discussed, but I think my specific question here, and I hope I can get an answer, is where are we at in terms of the council and the mayor, your acknowledgement of the fact that we do actually have an issue with racial profiling in the police department, because we're going forward with the hiring process.
Right.
We still don't have Mr. DeLacy's report. I know that you all had issues with the Star Ledger, the advancedmedia.com research that was done in their stats. So where do you stand now, and what kind of orientation are you going to be going into this hiring process and interview process in terms of asking questions that are going to make sure that it's clear that we understand we do have a problem? This is not question. It's not a matter of residents just having a concern, but it's a matter of the fact that there is a problem, and we need to make it clear that that's recognizable in the interview process, because I haven't heard that yet. So maybe I missed something. I heard you definitely nodded when we talked about racial segregation. That's easy to say, yes, we have it, but I still haven't seen that when it comes to talking about racial profiling.
So I'm going to look at Councilman Hale, who has done a lot of analysis on the police information that we received in comparing things to where we stand versus the rest of the county, and I'm going to ask him to speak to that because he's much closer to those numbers than I am. But I will tell you that we have looked at the findings from those numbers, and even if it's small numbers, you know, when I say small, it's in terms of total numbers, there clearly is an issue with more people of color being the people involved in situations that came up in that use of force report. And Councilman Hale, can you talk to that?
I can. I would like to point out that on January 9th, I gave a report to the Highland Park Equity Commission that sort of outlines a deep dive that I did into the use of force report. And so I was hoping that had been circulated, but apparently it's not. There are a number of different things that I think are important about the use of force report. The way that it was structured made it very difficult to make comparisons with other towns and other boroughs. And so I did that. I made a comparison between Highland Park and every other Middlesex County borough. And there are some interesting and I think some very troubling things that we did discover in that. Among those things, it seems very clear that in terms of the type of force that our officers use, we are much more likely than other jurisdictions in Middlesex County to use what is described as low levels of force, and we're less likely to use high levels of force. And that's just a sort of interesting finding that I think is an important one in recognizing the type of force that is used. Other things that we've discovered is that in comparison to others in Middlesex County, as the mayor indicated, a higher percentage of the times that force are used, we have a high percentage of the times that force is used is against African Americans and people of color. That's very clearly in the report that I gave to the Highland Park Equity Committee. It's very open, and we have said that. I did a deeper dive into that even further to find out when exactly use of force occurs. This has also been shared with the police department. It's been shared with the equity committee and with the council. And among the things that we found in there is that there seems to be a higher propensity for use of force during transportation, meaning from the time of arrest to the time of booking. That seems to be a bit of a higher time where there is a use of force. There also seems to be a somewhat higher use of force or a pattern of use of force when there is a call for a neighbor suspicious person call, which we obviously can dissect. There are a number of other sort of findings. I don't think that I'll take all the time. I'm happy to report these to anyone, and as I have done to the equity committee before. But my understanding and my deep dive into the use of force report is that there are issues that we need to be addressing. There are issues about who gets the use of force on, and there are specific instances where this happens, and there are specific times where we need to figure out what the solution is. So that's been shared with the police department. It's been shared with the Equity Commission. It's been shared with the council. Does that answer your?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I think the members of the Bias Free HP, who are also members of the Equity Commission, were definitely well aware of the report and took their deep dive as well. So I'm glad to hear that that was also done here, but I've never heard it stated. I think officially, we've always heard we need to find out, we need to see how their data compares to what we have. So I was just wondering where we are in that process, and then how you're going to go forward with presenting that during the interviews with the candidates,
Right.
to acknowledge that yes, we do have a problem. I haven't heard that yet, so I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg McClendon, 433 River Road, Highland Park. Again, I was here, I guess, a couple meetings back. There are some major issues, some major problems. I guess we all know that. Not only that, with this hiring process, I had the privilege of meeting with Mayor and meeting with Councilman Dublin and some of the leaders of the police department on this past Friday. I can say this here, I do know personally the candidates that are up for promotion, and my only problem with them, and I think they're all fine men, police officers. My only issue is this. I want to know if these officers that are up for promotion have had any of these issues that we talk about today. I know we're trying to rectify internally through training and things like that. However, the process, and I can see the frustration and understand the frustration from most of the folks here as to the charges of bias and things of such. Highland Park has come a long way, and I think we all can say that. We've come a long way, and I shared this a couple times before. You would get or go around Highland Park, you would never want to drive through Highland Park. That stigma is all but gone, but there are some issues. And we can't negate the fact that these are issues that must be addressed. What I did personally was I wanted to see tonight how many people in Highland Park that were affected by these reports. I don't see that many. I'm concerned about that because I would like to see and hear from anyone that has felt that they've been violated, and to make their cases known publicly in a forum such as this, so that we can actually have tangible, visible folks that we can point. I know you've had an issue, and that's being addressed, and we're going to make sure that that's addressed. You've had an issue, and I heard that. And these things are being, but there are others. Because I look at the statistics. Statistics are not just these two isolated incidents. There has to be more. And as Mr. Hale has just indicated, that when a perpetrator is arrested for whatever reason, transport from the incident to headquarters, there's some gray area there. So we need to find out what's going on, why it's happening. We also need to understand why when a call is made. And I believe that the police officer's job is this. If you get a call, dispatch gets the call, sends it to the radio patrolman, he has to or she has to go and investigate. They have to. That's a part. That's why we pay them. But the question is, what happens? And I think the public need to be educated even more, because who is suspicious? Why are these calls coming in? It escalates from that point. That's where I believe the issue is. When the officer confronts the individual, there's some type of escalation process. And I think it needs to be de-escalated, because now the person feels like, why are you messing with me? Why are you coming at me? And the officer, again, he's doing or she's doing what she would consider their job, and it ends up being an arrest or some type of confrontation based on what I just heard. I didn't know any of these things until just now. So there are some issues, there are some problems, and they must be addressed. What I need to see, if we can, the next meeting, if you know someone that has been in a situation, ask them to come to meetings like this so that we can put a name with a face. And then we can pursue it from that point. But to come in and we're all upset and everybody's pointing fingers with nothing more than statistics, it bothers me, because you're indicting an entire police force. And that's not fair. You know, they're hired to do a job, and we trust them for that. They're properly vetted through the council and all. But I'm not going to negate the fact that there are some problems. But what I want to find out is who are the problem? Who are the problem officers? And how do we address them? And then the training process from council. What are we doing as far as training these police officers? I know we talked a bit in de-escalation mode. When you get a call, and I know I work in a lot of police departments in that regard, how do we address these perps or whatever you want to call them, or even citizens at this point, because they're not criminals at this point. I think criminal behavior is perceived, or it comes once you feel you're boxed into a corner, and your way of speaking, maybe it's a loud tone, and at that point you're disrespecting me, or whatever. I'm not going to go into case by case, but I just have an issue with that, and I'm concerned. As I sit here, I listen. We need these answers, and I definitely want to know if we have any of the officers, the 3 that are now on the selection, if they've had any issues that the public know of. Bring it to the forefront so that council and the equity committee and all these folks that are responsible for promotion can say, listen, we need to take a harder look at this. Because these are going to be our next leaders in town. And they're going to be here for a while. You know, if you look at the statistics of how long the chief is in office and the captain, so my understanding is we have 3 lieutenants now. We're going to bring it back to 2, a captain and a chief. And this is our town. I grew up in this town, went to all the schools in this town. I love my town. I'm back in town, as I said before, and I want to make sure that our sons and daughters make it from point A to point B safely. I don't want Highland Park to become a statistic that we're seeing all over the country. Right now in Sacramento, they're having all these issues there right now because of a young kid that had a cell phone and thought it was a gun, a weapon, and he was shot many, many, many times. And there's a bunch of unrest going on, but we don't want that in Highland Park. Highland Park is a very small town, close-knit town, great people in town. Friday, for instance, I had an opportunity to walk right through, right to the captain's office or to lieutenant. It's that policy that we have. And I'm sure you guys can do the exact same thing. But it has to be valid. It has to be respectful. You know, realize they're human as well. But we have to bring concrete information to them. And I can promise, I pastor right here in Highland Park. I'm going absolutely nowhere. I will be at the mayor's office every day if I have to. And she has open door policy as well. I'll be with Councilman Dublin. She'll get tired of me. Get away, get away, get away. But no, we have to make change. I never want to hear the story that I heard from our good friend, Monique. That's disturbing, very disturbing. And we're going to do what we can to help her. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Jeff Vardaro, live on Wayne Street. I've now had a sort of chance to chew on what the borough attorney said in response to my question earlier, and I have to say, first, I don't think that the answer that providing a transcript would be legally inappropriate is really the same as saying it would be illegal or improper for the council and the mayor to decide to do that. I can't imagine a scenario where a candidate for this promotion would be able to object in any way because there was a recording of an interview rather than an unrecorded interview, compared to Councilman Hale just taking the questions and answers and conveying it personally to the Equity Commission, which I understand is the procedure that's going to be followed. So I don't think it's a really sufficient answer, but I guess putting that aside, because I understand you're going to follow the advice of the borough attorney, unless there's something really obviously wrong with it, I thought it was a great idea that we heard just a few moments ago to just ask the candidates whether they have an actual objection to doing that process, to recording and transcribing and redacting the interviews, because I think there's some value to asking the question because it shows us that you're actually interested in making this process as transparent as you really can. And it also shows us, based on the answers that the candidates give, whether they're on board for transparency and whether they would be on board for transparency as chief or captain. And so I guess I just, I think I've had the answer from the borough attorney, but I don't think any of the members of council who are here or the mayor has indicated whether you'd be open to asking that question of the candidates, even if it's just for the sake of asking the question. And so I was wondering if anybody has any thoughts on that.
Councilwoman Foster Dublin, did you want to answer?
I'm going to be one of the persons that's asking and, on the interview, so I don't see a problem with where we can definitely ask the candidates.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
Behind you.
I just wanted to support what you just said, because I don't mean to insult anyone, but as a social problem, racial profiling is very, very large, and there's always cover-ups involved in those issues, and so that it's very important that there not be transparency, because of so many times in our country where there have been cover-ups of inappropriate profiling behavior, violent behavior on the part of the police sometimes, unfortunately, like Sandra Bland or many of the others.
Okay.
I don't understand what you just said.
Pardon?
You want to explain that some more? You're saying that we would be in a position where we would try to cover up something if we know that there's something inappropriate that happened?
I think it's possible. It certainly has been true as a social problem when you read all kinds of assaults on black people throughout the country.
And I'm going to sit here as a black woman and let that happen. That's what you're saying?
I don't know that you have all that power.
And you think if I
wish you did.
I don't think that I would tolerate, I wouldn't sit here if I knew that something was going on that affects anyone, black person, white person, Asian person, anyone, and let that slide and say, okay, let it go as a cover-up. We have a country that has a history of racial profiling, bias, especially to people of color.
No, I understand, Elsie. I was not talking about you. I don't know every person. What I do know is that it is a social problem, that it has been a social problem in many police departments throughout the country. I am not asking, I'm not saying this to you personally, but I'm sure that as a black person, you know that throughout the country there have been many, many cover-ups of violence.
We're all fully aware of that, but I would not be a part of it at that, just to be crystal clear.
And I'm sure that, I don't have any belief that you would be.
State your name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Leticia Cataldi. I'm at 333 Cedar Avenue. I just wanted to say that, sorry, I wasn't prepared to speak. I got up because I think a lot of these issues and what we're bringing here is implicit bias. And we're not, I think a lot of people are just thinking like consciously, I don't feel this way, I don't think this way. This is a societal problem. It's a very serious problem, and I know you're all aware of it. It's just a matter of, I think, honestly, I wasn't even happy with the response that Monique got. I didn't think it really acknowledged what she was asking. I'm happy that she was happy. Monique is so gracious. I don't think that I didn't take it when Matt Hale was saying that it was really acknowledging the existence of bias. And if you want to talk about being implicit, I just wanted to be clear what we're asking here. And another thing that really bothered me, I think there's this idea that Highland Park is a special place. We love to think Highland Park is a special place. There's so many great things about Highland Park. We don't want, there's nothing that makes Highland Park different than Oakland or the Bronx and any of these places. This is a very, very serious matter. And I honestly am, every time I come here, I leave very hopeless. It's just disheartening. I feel like we really have to do better. I honestly think we're just not even close to where I would like for us to be. And I don't know how to put these into words. I hope I'm making some sense here, because it's just it's gut wrenching and just heartbreaking.
Yeah. So I just want to, I don't want to speak for you, Matt, but, and maybe you didn't hear or it didn't come off correctly, but after Matt did the analysis of the numbers, we did sit down and share them with the police management, and who really worked with him to give him the numbers. And this is numbers on reports that Matt went through paper by paper, not only the top sheets, but the what was happening behind the numbers. And what Matt said to the council, what he said to the Equity Commission, and what he said tonight was, we have an issue when a large percentage of our population, of the stops or the use of force, which is what he was talking about, falls on people of color. He did say that, and he's reported it to us. We've taken it to the police department. So I don't want you to think that we're not aware of those numbers or addressing it.
If anyone would like me to do a presentation of the entire numbers, I'm happy to do that. I don't know how to say it any more clearly than I did in the last, but I'm happy to do a presentation for someone at a later date. So.
Can I add something to this, Mayor? Even if we rip apart the numbers,
Speak into the microphone.
even if we rip apart the numbers and do the deepest dive possible, we keep talking about this inherent bias. As a society, we have to keep talking about these things, whether it's the Me Too movement, sexual harassment in the workplace, whether it's sexual abuse in the highest orders of the highest, the largest religions out there. We have to keep talking about this. And what I just hear the public asking is for us to keep talking about this. And whatever ends up happening with all of this stuff, that just let's put that. Let's make room for these conversations. Let's have that part of our agenda of what we do on a regular basis. And I think that'll take us further and further. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Mayor, can I add something as well? Councilman Hill had mentioned about suspicious persons. From my understanding, there's a lot of residents calling about suspicious persons in their neighborhood. I'm a part of your parents group on Facebook, and I've seen the comments. You guys see someone with a surgical mask walking on Main Street, and everyone freaks out. There's about 10 posts on there. Does that make that person suspicious? There's a Jan religion where people wear masks on their face, and you guys are, I don't know if they probably call the police for that. You're calling the police if someone's on maybe they're a resident on the south side, they're in the north side. Me and my husband were looking at houses, and soon we saw a police car. So I don't know, someone called the police on me too. So I think maybe a conversation also, you guys need to have the bias free, have with the neighbors as well, because this is just a small pocket of residents here. I mean, we have almost 15,000 residents here. I mean, it's everyone calling the police on each other because you think someone is suspicious in your neighborhood, that also has to be made aware as a self-consciousness as well.
I just wanted to ask a follow-up question because I agree with what Stephanie just said, and I know that we've all talked about that and how troubling that is. I know that last council meeting, I think it was last council meeting, but it was mentioned that there was a possible proposal or contract for the American something on diversity, right? And so I was wondering if you had an update about that, because I know that is something actually that we've been talking about for quite a while, and whether or not that has come through. And I think the purpose of that, if I remember correctly, was for education for the community, which I totally agree is, having looked at quite a few suspicious person reports, is a real problem. But I just wanted to get an update on whether or not that has moved forward.
We have the proposal from the American Conference on Diversity, and since people have heard that we're looking for this, another group came in to speak with Elsie and myself the other day, and they want to submit a proposal as well for the same kind of thing. So we're in the middle of the 2019 budgets, and in the budgets we plan to put in this diversity training for residents, which will be done by either the American Conference on Diversity, or, if anybody else sends in a proposal, we'll look at it. Right now, we have experience with Elizabeth over there, and she did do sort of a training, if you will, thing at one of our Dr. King events. So we have had conversations with her, and the borough administrator knows to put in funding for that kind of training for this year.
It will happen this year?
Well, funding goes in this year. It could start this year and then flow into next year, I assume.
It depends on how quick the selection is and what the proposal is.
Sorry, just Jeff Vardaro, Wayne Street. I just wanted to react quickly to what Councilwoman Welkowitz said. I don't, and actually what both of you just said, because I don't think that this is a matter of just continuing to have the conversation about diversity and bias and policing models, and I don't think this is a matter of just trying to get the community to be more open, and so we're not making a suspicious person call or Facebook post every time we see a person of color on our block. I think that the answer to some of these questions, and the reason why people are upset about the way that this police chief hiring process has happened, is it needs a different approach from the police, and that means having the most professional possible, best trained leader of a department, which to me means drawing from an applicant pool of more than 4 or 5 people. And that's why I think some people are upset that there wasn't more consideration of a director rather than a chief. I think that there's an element of that that is being missed when we put the burden back on the community to stop calling the police.
I don't think we're putting the entire burden on
I just want, thank you. I just want to clarify, I was not talking about you, Elsie. What we do know is that police departments have covered up in Oakland, in Ferguson, in Kansas, in all kinds of places, that there are cover-ups that go on around profiling, around violence in police departments. And I think that's a really serious thing.
Okay. Our history shows that's our history's there. You know what I got you. It's not about, but there's a history. I understand.
Mayor, can I just be clear? I wasn't saying not to call the police. You can call, that's their job. But I just think twice before we're calling the police. Go and ask the person something. I mean, before you just start calling the police on random people.
Well, the other thing that's part of this that we didn't really talk about is training for the dispatchers. Mm-hmm. And that is something that we've been talking about. Yeah.
That's another part of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Can I just say something quickly? What Stephanie's referring to, that we have had an incident, and I'm going to say on the north side of town. And we sent out some of our youngest officers to see what was going on in the neighborhood. What actually happened, somebody said their house was broken into, the door was unlocked, somebody came in and took jewelry, lots of jewelry. And we sent an officer in the neighborhood to just find out what's going on, dressed as a civilian, hang out in the neighborhood, walked up and down. We did a 2-week project, and we had different officers go. We had one of the officers just sitting on somebody's front step. The person came and asked them, do you want a bottle of water? And these are people that their house was broken, they're very concerned. We sent one of our African-American officers out there, and within an hour, we got 20 phone calls. So it's us within our own community that's a part of the problem, and that's where the education needs to be done. Yes, the education needs to be done with the dispatchers, but we need to take an introspective look at ourselves too. That's my comment.
Thank you. Please state your name and address.
I'm Ruth Picard, 307 Magnolia Street, and I hope you can all hear me.
Good.
I was 10 years old. I'm what they call a survivor. And I was on a boat in 1939 sailing from Germany to Cuba. And the Cuban president, or whatever his title was, wouldn't let us ashore. And the captain, who was not concerned about the country, he was concerned about the nearly 3,000 passengers on the boat, their safety, contacted Roosevelt, and he didn't want us. So there was no recourse. And we went back to Europe, and the passengers were divided up in 4 countries. We ended up in France in latter part of June. September 1, the war broke out, and then we became the enemy. We were quarantined. My father was waiting for us in Cuba. My brother and I were in France. We were fortunate. My father was able to get us out a second time. On the night that we were supposed to sail was December 24. That has significance for many, many people. And we were walking along on the pier, and I said to my mother, look at that man. Do you see that black man? And my mother turned to me and said, it's rude to point. These are the chocolate people, and we're the vanilla people. And I said, oh, really? And to me, to this day, I can hear those words in my ear, and they have always been the chocolate people. So I regret to say I have some prejudices, and I have some biases like everybody else does. But it has nothing to do with the color of their skin. In my street here on the south side, I'm the only owner-occupier of all the 6 or 7 houses there are. I have Turkish students there. The bratty one is my American born girl. All nationalities. But they're human beings.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Buckman, 234 Lincoln Avenue, Highland Park. I just wanted to thank the council for being open to this thorny process. There's a tremendous amount of distrust in our country in general, and there are some very difficult issues that we are all facing in trying to figure out how we become a better community, large and small. And my sense is that if you elect people that you trust, and those people put together committees to do the work that committees have to do, that you're in pretty good shape to start with. Making the process as transparent as possible is not a bad thing, but on the other hand, in an interview process, sometimes that can be pretty awkward. I know years ago I was on the Board of Ed, and when we interviewed people then, it was not a public interview process, in part because candidates wouldn't necessarily want to be subjected to any number of random comments from any number of other people. That may not be the case now, but I do recognize that the process of hiring people is difficult and needs to be confidential on some levels, and the people that we elect to get the job done are entrusted with that, and we've elected them. So this is not to say that we should just trust anybody we elected in all circumstances, but my prejudice is to say, thanks guys, I appreciate you doing the best job that you can, and as much as possible, what we can do to assure people who are, for good reason, suspicious of racism throughout society and the natural propensity of organizations to protect themselves, as to make as transparent as practical the process so people can be assured things are going well. But I'll finish where I started. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan, can you put it closer?
My name is Susan Edmonds, and I live at 440 Grant Avenue. And I just wanted to bring the conversation briefly back to Buckwoods. And again, refer to history and shared values in this community. I wanted to quote from the Highland Park Master Plan of 2003, a section on woodlands, which lists a number of woodlands in Highland Park. Not as many, not as great a number as I wish there were, but some. In addition, the vacant tracts between South 5th and 7th Avenues and a substantial part of the meadows are forested. Any future development in these areas should preserve mature trees to the greatest extent possible. And then the section on topography and steep slopes refers again at the end of the list between South 5th and South 7th Avenues, formerly known as the Buck property. There are steep slopes. And then at the end, preservation of steep slopes is also essential to help preserve the borough's natural topography, retain its scenic views, and protect its wildlife habitat. Those are things that we have valued in the past and that we value now, and I hope that those values can be a context for helping make decisions about the zoning regulation or whatever it takes to preserve the trees in Buckwoods.
Thank you. Okay. Can I have a motion to go into executive session? I'm sorry? No. Oh, all of it is done? Ed, do you need any?
We don't need an executive session, do we?
No. Okay. May I have a motion to convene to conference session?
So moved.
Second.
This meeting is adjourned.